Hello, American Girl YouTube channel. This is the Medicine channel, and we're going to be reading the first chapter of the Smithsonian Plant and Fungi book. And it's called Plants and Fungi. D.K. Smithsonian Plants and Fungi. And the first part is the introduction, why plants and fungi matter. And chapter 1, we have the plant kingdom. Chapter 2, we have growing and feeding. Chapter 3, reproduction. Chapter 3, Chapter 4, ecosystems. Chapter 5, people and plants. And Chapter 6, the fungi kingdom. Okay? And we have subheadings from page 10 to 34. Okay? These are our chapters that we're going to be going over in the book as I read and go along. Okay? Introduction. Why plants matter. Oxygen from plants help screen Earth's surface from harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun. Why plants and fungi matter. Plants and fungi make our planet what it is. Without them, we would not be there. About 500 million years ago, plants began to colonize land. Fungi were already there. Plants and fungi teamed up and transformed the planet. Forests had spread across the continents by 380 million years ago, providing food and habitats for animals. Along with algae in the seas, plants pumped oxygen into the atmosphere and removed carbon dioxide. The air became breathable and life flourished. Today, we rely on plants and fungi as much as ever. Habitats. Plants provide homes for all sorts of animals, large and small. Fungi help make homes for them too by rotting wood and creating hollows in trees. Renewable materials. Plants and fungi provide us with many renewable materials. We use timber to build houses and furniture and cotton to make clothes. Fungi are used to make biodegradable packaging and to manufacture industrial chemicals. Digestion. Plant-eating animals need help from fungi and other microbes to digest food. Herbivores such as deer have fungi in their stomachs to break down leaves, and some termites and ants have fungus gardens to turn leaves into food. Soil. Fungi help turn dead organic matter into soil, as well as break down leaves and wood. They help bind soil together, preventing it from being blown away by wind or washed away in the rain. Recycling. Every year, Earth's plants make more than 55 billion tons of organic matter. To keep things in balance, fungi break down and recycle a similar amount, releasing mineral nutrients that plants can use. Making food. Through photosynthesis, many plants and algae capture the energy in sunlight and use it to make the food that all other organisms rely on. So plants provide the power to ruin every ecosystem. Every year, a mature tree releases as much oxygen as 10 people breathe in. The first organisms to photosynthesize appeared 3.4 billion years ago in the oceans. Climate. Plants and algae help regulate the climate. When they photosynthesize, they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which helps reduce the greenhouse effect. Clean air. Trees clean the air by trapping dust and pollutants. They also reduce noise, provide shade, and help prevent floods, and can cool our cities by several degrees. Medicines. Plants and fungi are the source of many medicines. The painkiller aspirin originally came from the bark of a willow tree, and the antibiotics that fight All sorts of infections were first discovered in fungi. Oxygen. The process of photosynthesis releases oxygen into the air, which humans and other animals breathe. Biodiversity. There are millions of different plant and fungus species. This great diversity helps keep ecosystems healthy, providing food to millions of animals, billions of animal species, and ensuring that the natural nutrient cycles keep working efficiently. Food from fungi. Many small animals rely on fungi for food. Humans have used fungi for centuries to make bread, cheese, and wine. Mycorrhizas. Fungi are essential for plant growth. Soil-dwelling fungi from partnerships called mycorrhizas with the roots of plants. The fungi provide water and minerals to plants, and plants provide sugars from photosynthesis in exchange. Biodiversity. This is what the introduction looks like. Over there. Here. Okay. Chapter 1. The Plant Kingdom. Wherever there is water, light, and air, plants are almost sure to grow. Scientists have identified and named about 400,000 different types of plants. These range from teeny, simple plants no bigger than grains of rice to the largest organisms to ever live on Earth. This is Chapter 1, The Plant Kingdom. The Plant Kingdom. What is a plant? We share about 60% of our genes with the average plant. 400,000, the approximate number of plant species known to science. What is a plant? The plant kingdom is made up of hundreds of thousands of very different species, from the teeny moss to towering redwood trees. Despite their diversity, all plants have certain key features in common. It is easy to tell plants apart from animals. Plants are usually green, grow rooted to one spot, and make food using sunlight photosynthesis. However, some organisms look like plants, but aren't, such as seaweed. The scientific definition of a plant is any member of a group of related organisms called embryophysicists. Embryophysicists either live on land or evolved from ancestors that lived on land. They make food in leaves by photosynthesis, and they grow from embryos that form inside or attach to their parents. Sexual reproduction. Not all plants make flowers or seeds. However, sexual reproduction always produces an embryo that starts life protected inside or attached to a parent plant. This is very different from the way seaweeds reproduce. Photosynthesis. Plants use light energy to make food molecules in a chemical process called photosynthesis. Growth. Plants don't stop growing when they become mature. They keep adding new branches and roots from stem cells, cells that can divide and form any other kind of cell. Immobility. Plants grow fixed to one spot. They can't move around as animals can. However, not all plants have roots. Some have similar hair-like structures called rhizoids, merely to anchor them to the ground. Rhizoids. Defining features. When you think of a plant, you might picture broad leaves and colorful flowers, but not all plants are like that. To identify the features that all plants share, we have to look closer and examine their cells and the way they reproduce. Leaves. All plants have leaves in some kind, though they may not be obvious. In moss, they are very teeny. In cacti, they have become defensive spines. Cell wall. Plant cells have certain features that features not found in other organisms. One is a tough cell wall made of fibrous substance called cellulose. Vacuolar. Plant cells have a water storage area called vacuolar. Vacuolars keep cells pumped to start a plant from wilting. Chloroplast. Plant cells contain teeny green bodies called chloroplasts. Photosynthesis takes place inside these bodies. Plant or not, the wonderful diversity of the natural world can be confusing. Some organisms grow and feed like plants, but belong to other kingdoms of life, and a few true plants have lost their defining features. Not a plant. Coral. Colorful corals are sometimes mistaken for aquatic plants, but they are actually colonies of teeny, brainless animals. Many have photosynthesized algae living inside them, so, like plants, they can obtain food and photosynthesis. Living stone. Living stones are found in deserts and look more like stones than plants. The camouflage protects their precious store of water from thirsty animals. Not a plant. Algae. Seaweed and slimy green stuff in ponds are not plants, but algae. Algae uses chlorophyll number 2 to photosynthesize, but they can't live out of water. They reproduce in a different way from plants. Plant. Ghost plant. This ghostly white plant has no chlorophyll number 2 because it has given up photosynthesizing and steals food from other organisms. However, it has all the other defining features of a true plant. Plant. Watermeal. This may look like algae, but watermeal duckweed is actually the smallest flowering plant in the world. It grows floating on water. Not a plant. Mushrooms. Although mushrooms are immobile and have ridged cell walls, they do not photosynthesize. They are more closely related to humans than plants. Photosynthesis. With just a handful of exceptions, all plants make food by photosynthesis. In this process, plants capture energy from the sun and use it to convert carbon dioxide from air and water, usually from soil, into sugar molecules. The sugar can then be used as a kind of fuel to power other chemical processes, or it can be used as a building block to make larger molecules needed for growth. Okay. We're going up the page. We're going to be stopping at page 34. Okay? Classifying plants. The plant kingdom. The first tree, a close relative of ferns, lived 385 million years ago. 432 million years, the age of the oldest known plant fossil, Cooksoana barandelli. Classifying plants. Since ancient times, people have tried to make sense of the natural world by naming each type of animal and plant or grouping them in families. The process of classifying plants continues to this day and is now based on how plants evolved. A distinct type of plant, they can breed with other individuals of the same type, such as apple tree or a buttercup, is called a species. There are hundreds and thousands of different plant species, but one who studies plants soon notices patterns among them. For example, apple trees have similar flowers to wild roses, peaches, and plums, so all those are grouped together in the rose family. In the past, people used the features of the flowers to classify plants. Today, scientists study every part of the plant, including its DNA. These studies have helped them to build a family tree of the entire plant kingdom. The plant kingdom. The plant kingdom is one of the major kingdoms of life, along with the animal kingdom, fungus kingdom, and several kingdoms of mostly microscopic organisms. The first members of the plant kingdom appeared about 500 million years ago, when the aquatic organisms called algae began to live in the margins between land and water. As plants gradually evolved to live outside of water. Their descendants split into the major groups of plants that we know today: cord moss and liverwort. Moss and liverwort and hornet's wort, the first true plants, were close relatives of today's moss, liverworts, and hornworts. These plants are restricted to damp habitats because they reproduce using sperm cells that swim through water. They spread by making spores rather than seeds. They have no roots or vines. Gymnosperms. The evolution of seeds and pollen, which replaced free-swimming sperm, finally freed plants from damp habitats. The first seed plants were gymnosperms, which produced seeds like cones of those today's conifers. Not plants. 1 billion years ago, green algae evolved. Green algae. Plants evolved from aquatic organisms called green algae. These very simple life forms use chlorophyll number 2 to photosynthesize, but they do not have roots, leaves, seeds, or flowers. The single-cell green algae chlorophyll is close relative of the first land plants. 450 million years ago, vines and roots evolved. Ferns and ecophytes, common club moss. Ferns and their ecophytes relative are vascular plants, which means they have vines to carry water and nutrients around the plant and to provide structural support. This allows them to grow much larger than non-vascular plants and survive in drier conditions. However, like non-vascular plants, ferns and liophyces need damp habitats for their sexual reproduction, which relies on swimming sperm cells. 250 to 150 million years ago, flowers evolved. Flowering plants like gymnosperm rely on wind to pollinate cones. Flowering plants evolved partnerships with pollinating animals such as insects. Sexual reproduction became much more efficient as the shape, colors, and scents of different flowers adapted to suit specific pollinators. Thanks partly to this breakthrough, flowering plants became the dominant group of plants in the world. Scientific names. Just like animals, every plant species has scientific names with two parts, as well as more familiar common names. The peach tree, for instance, is Prunus persca. The second word is unique to the species, while the first name is genus, a group that includes closely related species such as apricots, nectarines, and plums. Similar genre, the popular of genes are grouped together to form a family. Similar families are grouped to form an order, and so on. Species: peach tree, genus, peaches, plums, cherries, and relatives. Family: Rosica, rose family, rosales, rose family and related families. Class: flowering plants whose seeds contain 2 baby leaves. Division: flowering plants. Kingdom: the plant kingdom. And domain: organisms with cell nucleus. Other plant categories. While scientists base plant classification on evolution, gardeners will often use other systems such as shapes of plants or how long they live. Many of the terms they use for these features work in pairs. Woody plants such as trees have stems strengthened by woody tissue, while herbaceous plants do not. Deciduous plants shed their leaves usually in the fall and winter, while evergreen trees keep them. Annual plants complete their life cycle in 1 year. Biennials live for 2 years. Biennials live for 2 years, and perennials live for many years. Monoecious plants have separate male and female flowers on the same plant, while deciduous plants are either whole male or female. Hermaphrodites have male and female parts in the same flower. Hermaphrodites have male and female parts on the same flower. Major families. There are more than 60 plant families. There are more than 600 plant families, most of which are families of flowering plants. The top 5 are shown here. Daisies. Members of this family have composite flowers made of small individual flowers. Many garden flowers belong to this family. Coffees and bedstraws. These tropical and subtropical plants include trees, lianas, vines, herbs, and coffee plants. Orchids. Orchid flowers are symmetrical and produce extremely teeny seeds. Many orchids are plants that grow on other plants. Legumes. Legumes include important food crops such as peas, beans, and lentils. Their roots contain microorganisms that convert nitrogen from air into nitrate materials used for growth. Grass. Grasses include grain crops such as wheat, rice, and maize, and the largest grass of all, bamboo, which is grown for its nutritious seeds, which are ground to make flour for making bread and other food. Algae and seaweeds. Giant kelp, the world's largest seaweed, can grow to more than 196 feet tall. There are about 1 billion plankton in the world's oceans. Cyanobacteria have been living on Earth for 2.9 billion years. Algae and seaweed. Algae and seaweed. You may have heard that plants make the oxygen we breathe, but most of our oxygen doesn't come from plants. Instead, it comes from aquatic organisms called algae. Scientists use the word algae for all sorts of organisms that live in the water and can make food through photosynthesis. Algae are very different from land plants, so they are not classified as members of the plant kingdom. Most are microscopic single cells that live floating in the water. Leave a glass of water on a sunny windowsill for a few days and algae will soon appear, creating a greenish haze. Microscopic floating algae are called phytoplankton and form from the base of marine and freshwater chains. Other algae, such as seaweed, grow as large plants. Dinoflagellates have armor plates made of cellulose, the same substance found in plant cell walls. This is the other part y'all missed on the other page. Type plankton, habitat fresh and marine water, up to 0.8 inches. These single-celled algae are so named because they have a pair of microscopic wings used for swimming. Some dinoflagellates emit light, making the sea look blue-green at night. Occasionally, dinoflagellates multiply in such members that can cause red tides, turning patches of sea red and poisoning fish. Cocolithiophosphorus type plankton habitat upper 650 feet of non-polar oceans, size 0.0001 to 0.004 inches. These clouds of single-celled algae called COCCOLITHOPHORES are visible in the oceans from space. The cells are protected by ornate discs called COCCOLITHs made of calcium carbonate. When COCCOLITHOPHORES die, their cells drop into the seafloor and build up over millions of years to form chalk. Diatoms. Diatoms, plankton, fresh and marine water as well as soils, damp surface, and ice. Size 0.001 to 0.01. Diatoms produce almost half the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Their cell walls are hardened by celiac, the main ingredients in glass, and take many different shapes, some resembling teeny jewels. Most diatoms live floating in the sea, but some live inside other organisms, providing them food. Cell wall. Each species has a unique cell wall pattern. Colored image of diatoms seen in an electron microscope. Spirogoria. Planktons, freshwater habitats in stagnant water up to 0.004 inches wide and several centimeters long. This algae is visible to the naked eye as a slimy green scum floating in standard water. However, a close look through a microscope reveals its intricate structure. It grows in long threads, a single cell wide, in which cell containing a spiral-shaped green chloroplast. Cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria. Plankton, every kind of aquatic habitat on the wet ground, damp rocks. Cyanobacteria are the smallest known photosynthesized organisms. Although sometimes called blue-green algae, they are not algae and belong to a very different domain of life, the bacteria. Despite this, they are considered to be plankton and form a very important part of marine food chains. Eugellina, plankton habitat, ponds, lakes, damp soil, and salt water. This single-celled algae baffled early biologists, as it seemed to be halfway between animal and plant. Eugellina contains chloroplast and can photosynthesize, but it can also swim around by beating its flagellums, and it can survive in dark water by taking in food. Pyropyra. Sushi is wrapped with pyropyra. Red algae, seaweed. Thin, delicate fronds of seaweed are used to make nora sheets used to wrap sushi. It is similar to sea lettuce, but it is red because its chloroplast use red pendulums as well as chloroplast 2 to capture sunlight for photosynthesis. Bladderwick. Seaweed. Air-filled bladder keeps the fronds of this floppy seaweed upright when submerged at high tide, helping them absorb sunlight. At the base of the seaweed is a root-like structure that absorbs it to rocks so that waves won't wash it away. Brown algae such as bladderwort are common on rocky beaches in cooler parts of the world. Sea lettuce, seaweed. The leaf-like sheets are just 2 cells thick, giving sea lettuce a structure. A bright green edible seaweed. The sea lettuce clings to rocks with a teeny disc-like hold fast. Green algae such as sea lettuce uses the same kinds of chloroplast plants to capture light for photosynthesis. 16. The plant kingdom, moss and liverworts. Moss spores are teeny and often less than 0.002 inches. Ferns are found on every continent except Antarctica. More than 10,000 species of fern are alive today. Mosses and liverworts. The simplest and most ancient types of plant to live on land, mosses and liverworts, first appeared about 480 million years ago. These small plants have changed rapidly since then. Mosses and liverworts have no true roots and no vines to carry water. So most are restricted to damp habitats and are small, forming clumps or cushions. Even so, they can be remarkably tough. They don't produce flowers or spread by making seeds. Instead, they spread to new habitats by releasing teeny single-cell spores, single-cell particles called spores. Nodding thread moss. This common moss grows in boggy soil, on rocks, and on rotting logs, habitats where there is little soil for the larger plants to thrive. Its green spores capsules grow on bright red stems, shedding their microscopic spores into the wind like teeny pepper pods. Up to 3 inches tall. All 7 continents. Haircap moss. Location: Asia, Europe, and North America. Up to 12 inches tall. This common moss forms large cushions packed with dark, spiky leaves. The leaves fold back against the stem when dry, but spread out when moist. The reddish spore capsules develop at the tips of tall stalks. Each is protected by a structure called a cylindria. On these moss, it looks like a shower cap or hair cap. Moss life cycle. The life cycle of a moss and liverworts alternates between 2 distinct kinds of plants, one that makes sex cells and the other that makes spores. This is known as alteration of generations. It is a feature of all plants, though not always obvious. In moss and liverworts, one generation grows out of the other, giving the appearance of a single plant. The spores capsule and its stalk from the distinct plant called spirophysis that produces spores. The spores grow into a new plant that has male and female sex organs. Sperm male cells swim to the female egg cells and fertilize them. This fertilization cells grow into new sporophytes. Female egg cell, male sex organ. Liverwort, Europe. Size up to 4 inches across with spore-breathing structures up to 1 inch tall. Cup-like structures hold teeny buds that grow into new plants. The flat mat-like body is called the thallus. Liverworts are also named because many types have flat shaped like leaf-like lobes which resemble lobes of human liver. The other liverwort species look very similar to moss, though they are only distinctly related. Ferns. Like mosses and liverworts, ferns spread by making spores and produce never produce flowers or seeds. However, they have features that moss and liverworts lack, such as roots and veins, allowing them to grow bigger with larger, often divided leaves. Fronds. Ferns are an ancient group of plants that first appeared about 400 million years ago. Some grew to tree size, while others remained teeny and hidden in shady places. Ferns can survive in drier places than moss and liverworts, but the reproductive stage of their life cycle needs damp conditions because, like mosses, liverworts, ferns also release sperm cells that swim through water to find female cells. Norman Made hair fern. Location: South America. Up to 20 inches tall. This small fern is called maidenhair because its thin black stalks look like hair. The ferns are divided into lobes, creating a cascade of what looks like hundreds of teeny leaves. It grows well indoors and is a very popular houseplant. Staghorn fern. The staghorn fern is located in Australia. Fronds up to 3 feet long. Staghorn ferns grow up in trees. They are epiphytes, which means they use trees to support. They have two types of fronds: heart-shaped ones that photosynthesize, and larger ones that make spores that are shaped like deer antlers. Soft tree ferns. Uncoiling. Young ferns have spiral shape as they open. They are called crocerias or fiddleheads. Soft tree ferns. New Zealand, up to 10 feet tall. Tree ferns are common in the age of the dinosaurs, but today are found only in damp tropical or subtropical forests. The soft tree fern develops a kind of trunk made of roots. It grows slowly, increasing in height by only about 1 to 3 inches a year. Because the trunk consists of roots, it can be cut and the top part will regrow again if planted. Male fern. Asia, Europe, and North America. The male fern is a common sight in shady areas. In spring, a ring of new ferns grow from the plant's center, each year uncurling from a coiled bud. Fern life cycle. Ferns have a life cycle that involves two distinct plants. Spores are made by the main plant. When a spore germinates, it grows into teeny plants that looks like a liverwort. This plant produces male and female cells. The male cells swim through the surface water to reach the female cells. After the two join, the first frond of a new fern plant grows, and the cycle continues. Spores made in capsule under frond, spore cycle, spores released in the air. Government plants make sex cells, spore germinates, new fern grows, sex cells join. Spore capsules. This is chapter 1, part 1. Then I'm going to do part 2 next of chapter 1. Okay? Spore capsules. In late summer, networms of brown bumps appear on the underside of fern leaves. Each bump is a cluster of teeny round spore capsules. Ferns spread by capsulating single-cell particles called spores into the air. These develop inside capsules called sporagania, each of which contains 64 spores. Wrapping around every single sporaganium is a chain of cells that acts as a kind of spring machine. as spores retain. The spring gradually dries out, which makes it uncurl and tear open the capsule. Finally, when completely dry, it flicks back suddenly into a curved shape and hurls the spores away. This is moss, liverworts, and ferns. That's ferns, moss, and liverworts. And this is spores and capsules. Okay. So we have left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We have 15 more pages in chapter 1. So we are on conifers. This is chapter 1, part 1, conifers. Pages 10 through 17. Okay, conifers. Conifers are found on every... Okay, we're going to stop here on page 21. Part 1 is going to end on page... Okay, conifers. Conifers are found in every continent except Antarctica. Earth's northern hemisphere has 2.3 million square miles of conifer forest, 380 feet, 166 meters, the height of the world's tallest living tree, a coast redwood tree in California. Conifers. Conifers are plants that produce seeds inside conifers, inside cone, hence their name means cone bearing in Latin. They have no flowers or fruits, and most are evergreen trees with needle-shaped leaves. Conifer trees cover huge swaths of cold lands in the northern hemisphere, forming continuous belts of forest around the globe from Alaska to Canada, Scandinavia, and Russia. Conifers also flourish on mountains, in deserts. They are tough plants with many features that help them endure harsh conditions, from natural antifreeze in their caps in their cells to waterproof covering on their needles to preserve water. Giant redwood, Sierra Nevada mountains, California, USA, up to 278 feet tall. The giant redwood is among the tallest and most long-lived trees in the world and can reach an age of more than 3,000 years. As a young tree, it has a rectangular shape. As it ages, the lower branches are shaped and a tall trunk covered with reddish, fiery, resistant bark develops. Olive cones, egg-shaped female cones, grow up to 2.7 inches long. Mediterranean cypress. Mediterranean countries and Western Asia up to 115 feet. This very slender conifer is a familiar sight in Mediterranean countries such as Greece, where the trees stand out on hillsides. Its scented timber was once used to make church doors and musical instruments. Cone clusters, small round cones grown in clusters among dense evergreen foliage. Life cycle of a conifer. Conifers reproduce by making seeds, but they have cones instead of flowers. Cones are either male or female. Male cones release pollen, a dust-like substance that is disappeared by the wind, into female cones. It fertilizes the female cells inside ovules, which then turn into seeds. Seeds released from the mature cone. Seeds develop inside cones. Mature female cone present. Male cone releases pollen. Scots pine, Asia and Europe. Scots pines are found in Asia and Europe, up to 115 feet tall. Britain's only native conifer gets its name from Scotland, but its species is found across Europe and Asia. It typically has an orange-red bark. The bluish-green needles are arranged in parts. Its cones take up to 3 years to mature, changing from green to brown as they ripen. Inside pine cone, the female cones are made up of scales and are arranged in a spiral. On the top of each scale is a naked seed, a seed without a seed coat. Inside needle, pine needles are covered in a layer of waterproof wax to conserve water. Transport vessels for water and sugar and run down the middle. Smaller vessels carry pine resin, a sticky substance that seals wounds and repels insects. Layer of waterproof wax, resin, cane, pour, central cylinder containing transport vessel. Pine cone. Female pine cones produce seeds after fertilization. Pine needles. Like most conifers, the Scots pine has needle-like leaves. Their narrow shape helps reduce water and keeps snow from building up. Thick bark. The mature bark is gray-green, while younger branches are at the top of the tree are more reddish. Monkey puzzles. Lower slopes of Andes Mountains, up to 98 feet tall. South American conifer clings to life-aimed volcanic lava flowers in Argentina and Chile. Its unusual name comes from an English lawyer who in 1850 saw the spooky leaves and declared that even a monkey would puzzle how to climb the tree. Spiky leaves grow directly from the trunk and branches. Karua, New Zealand North Islands, up to 164 feet tall. The karoo of New Zealand is one of the world's largest conifers with a trunk that can reach 16 feet wide. It looks very different from most conifers, with flat leaves and round cones that break apart when seeds are shed. Leathery leaves, flat and thick. The leathery leaves can grow to 2.7 inches long. Round cones. The distinctive cones take up 20 months to mature, then release winged seeds. Wallam pine, Wollemi, Wallim pine, Wallim National Park, Australia, up to 131 feet. Confined to only a few valleys in Australia, the Wallim pine was discovered by scientists in 1994. It is almost identical to fossils of conifers that lived in the Cretaceous period around 100 million years ago. Dangling cones. The male cones dangle from the tree like catkins. So this is the conifers and pine trees. So, we're going to take a brief break and I'll be back. So this is part 1, chapter 1 of Plants and Fungi.